language learning is one of the most vulnerable places that we can put ourselves in as adults.
Why is that?
Because to me, language is everything. The way that we perceive our life, ourselves, our community, it's all tied to language.
Welcome to the Whole Human Experience, your library for experiential wellness.
Thank you for being here today.
Gracias a ti.
Gracias. Muchas gracias, Val.
Un
Estoy
placer.
muy emocionado.
Oh, y yo también.
It's an honor to have you here for your first ever podcast. Somebody who does speaking for a living. It's actually incredible.
True.
See, you are my Spanish teacher.
I am.
You are the reason that I can even sprinkle in any Spanish words into this podcast. You're the reason why I can start to really integrate into Nosara in the way that I desire, in the way that's been blocked for years. Honestly, it's one of the hardest things for me ever, actually, is to learn a new language. It's
not an easy
very
thing.
hard.
Yeah, man.
It's very hard, but you've actually made it an enjoyable process so far. And I am so grateful to you. I'm so grateful that you're my teacher. And to learn from you is such an honor because you make the process fun, which I never thought that something so hard could be fun.
It has to be fun. In my experience, that's the only way.
Okay. Speak more to that. Why does it have to be fun?
Well, when I first started teaching, I kind of came up with, I was telling you about these 3 pillars of language learning that are exposure, consistency, and fun, right? And this stems from my own experience learning English as a teenager. I always talk about this, but I was always a pretty good student in school. And English, which to you guys is like Spanish, right? English was the one class that I was consistently failing over and over and over again. I just couldn't do it, couldn't get focused, it didn't make sense, and I kind of just gave up. Like I passed the classes barely. And then at one point they stopped teaching it in school and I forgot about it. And then teenagehood came and I started listening to a lot of music in English, and the Hunger Games saga had just come out and I was like big fan, and I read the first book in Spanish and then the second book came out in English, but it takes forever for these things to reach the most southern portion of Latin America, aka Argentina, and I was too impatient, so I downloaded it, pirate obviously, in English.
Yeah.
And I read it in English without speaking a drop of English. It took me forever, but I was having fun with it, and I was getting exposed all of a sudden. A lot of American and English media in South America, right? TV shows, music, movies, stuff like that. There weren't podcasts then yet. And I just started consuming a lot of that naturally and enjoying it. And that was basically the process of me learning English.
The exposure.
Yeah. So when I came up with these 3 pillars, I was like, okay, exposure is number 1, right? Which is what I always tell my students. Like, you do 1 hour, 2 or 3 hours of classes with me during the week, but that's not enough to tell your brain that Spanish or any language that you're learning is an important skill in your life, Especially as adults, we have so much going on and there are so many skills that we need to integrate on a daily basis in order to be successful at adulting, So we throw in another language in our brain. At first, it's like, why? If the goal of language learning is to communicate with people, especially if you're an English speaker, you have a universal tool, and then you remove a crucial part of language learning, which is developing the need to learn that language in order to communicate. English people don't need that. That's just the truth, As an English-speaking person, you don't really need to learn how to speak Spanish. So when you take away the need, the brain is like, well, why? With all the things that I need to be focusing on, why would I focus on integrating Spanish, you know? So with exposure, you're telling your brain, no, this is actually an important skill for me to learn because I'm living most of my life or a huge chunk of my life in this language. And so 1 hour, 2 hours of one-on-one classes a week is okay. But basically, you're living your entire life in English. And then at a random time, you're just like, oh, well, I need Spanish now. But if every day you're investing a little bit of your time and doing something that you enjoy, you know, it's like your brain starts thinking, oh, this is important to him or to her, you know?
Yeah. As somebody who is on that process, obviously we've been working together for months now. What's the MVE, minimum viable exposure? What's the exposure you would recommend? Like, this is the least, but this is the effective dose.
Every day?
Every day?
Every day, at least. I would say every day do one thing that you are a little uncomfortable with in Spanish, right? And that sadly means that if you live in Nosara or in any other town that's very Americanized, let's say it like that.
You can say it.
Americanized.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, going to the same coffee shop every day and ordering the same way every day doesn't count as that anymore. Eventually.
It's a little bit of discomfort.
You need a little bit of discomfort.
Yeah, it's where
If
the growth
every day
edge
you
is.
go to Orgánico and you're like, hola, ¿puedo tener un matcha con leche de coco, por favor? Gracias. Yes, that's great, but
Not enough.
eventually you just get used to it. You gotta step out of your comfort zone a little bit. So just like whether it's listening to a song, to new music,
Bad
or
Bunny?
listening to a podcast, for sure.
Okay, good.
Of course, we all love El Conejo Malo, okay? We love him. So, yes, you're gonna learn some interesting Spanish.
I know.
For sure.
Half of like our
I
classes
don't know where
is
you're gonna
singing Bad
use
Bunny.
it. But hey, to
Okay.
each their own.
Got it.
Yeah. But just a little bit of exposure every day, watching a movie, watching a show, rewatching something that you've already watched a million times, or reading something that you've read a million times, but dubbed to Spanish or translated to Spanish is really good. You know, there are ways to do it in which it's not so like,
Yeah.
but definitely exposure is very important. Consistency is very important because language learning doesn't happen overnight. You know, I think especially now, we live in a time of like quick fixes, quick solutions, you know?
I know.
And language learning will challenge that every time.
So humbling.
So humbling.
So humbling. When I got my concussion last week, I was hoping, I was like, maybe a new language will just kick in there with this concussion. It didn't. It didn't this time. But it is very hard. It's very humbling to suck so much.
Yes.
What is the beauty in sucking at something? Like, why is it important? Because you mentioned like find that edge of something difficult, but there's also
Yes.
another layer of like, I'm going to suck at this for a long
Like surfing, man. Like surfing.
Which you're a great surfer.
I'm a good surfer. I'm learning, and it's ups and downs, you know. I got a concussion too this year.
Heyo.
Concussion buddies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I read a quote at some point last year, and I put it in my vision board this year, and it was something like, don't be afraid to be seen trying. And I was like, damn, I'm so scared to be seen trying, especially like when you're someone who's very proficient at what they do, or like if you're very eloquent, you know, and suddenly you start learning a new language and you have to sound like a 5-year-old child. And there is no way to skip that stage.
So you still have that fear to be seen of sucking at trying. Even with somebody, in my experience, you have learned languages, you have learned surfing, you are a great musician and performer. So from my perspective, it's like Val can do many things that take a lot of repetition and a lot of sucking to get good.
Yeah.
So I'd think for Val to learn new things, that would be able to transfer over. But can you speak more to that?
Before this podcast, I was terrified, you know?
Yeah.
Because even if I have been speaking English for like 10 years, and for a lot of people, It's like where I am maybe is their goal, language learning wise. I still feel a huge distance between the level of eloquency that I have in my native language versus what I have in English. You know what I mean? It's like I think I probably will never be able to say exactly what I want to say when I say it in English, because it's just not the way, it's not the language that my psyche developed around. You know what I mean? Language is crucial, without, in psychology, and I will talk a lot about psychology, I think, because my mom is a psychologist, my sister is a psychologist, and I grew up around that a lot, and it's where my love for language kind of stems from, because our entire personalities are built around our mother language, our mother tongue. The way that we perceive the world is a consequence of that first language that we learn. It's kind of like if your brain is a computer, it's the language, it's the code that it's built on, but yeah, anyways, back to your question. Sucking is so important. It's so important to be bad at shit and doing it anyways. It makes us more vulnerable. It makes us less judgy, I think, of other people, or at least it makes you question yourself before you judge, or when you're judging someone for doing something wrong or for not being up to your standards. You're like, well, how often am I putting myself in situations where I'm growing, Because really, if you're doing everything perfectly in your life, where's the growth? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's Carol Dweck, growth mindset. It's exactly that. You have to keep the growth. On this topic of judging, nosotros vivimos en Osara.
Sí.
We live in Osara.
Yes.
And there is definitely a lot of judgment that occurs here.
Oh, yeah.
Possibly rightfully so. People can hold that judgment. People can hold judgment anywhere in the world. I perceive you as somebody who doesn't hold a lot of judgment, like you just said. Do you feel it's because you're a teacher of the language?
Definitely.
I would think that would give you potentially more space to judge, because you're like, I know so many people that learn this thing. Why don't you just take the time to learn the thing? Everybody can do this. Why don't you just do it? How do you move in a place like Nosara, where Spanish is the native language of the land, and there's so many people that speak English and maybe don't even try to speak Spanish? How do you hold that space to my perception, to not judge them?
See, I think it's like I'm actually so blessed because of my job, I get to see all the people that try and that want to try. And so I feel like if I wasn't a Spanish teacher, I would be going around like, why is no one even trying to speak Spanish, But I see the amount of people, that try, and how hard they try and how difficult it is. And I also understand that language learning is one of the most vulnerable places that we can put ourselves in as adults.
Why is that?
Because to me, language is everything, And the way that we perceive our life, ourselves, our community, it's all tied to language. And languages are very different. Spanish is very different from English. The Spanish mindset is very different from English. So subconsciously, when you're learning a new language, you're also introducing a new way of thinking. And that changes the way that you perceive yourself and the world around you. And that can be very hard.
Yeah. You taught me this, that there's so much more, not just to say, but to experience and to feel, especially in Spanish. There's so much more. Can you speak a little bit to that? The feelings and the different ways that not just we understand words, but that we can experience the world by learning a new language, and why being somebody who's, is it a monolinguist?
I never heard that term before.
I would assume so.
There you go.
Somebody who speaks one
Monolinguist.
language, why it's actually stopping their full expression.
Well, we say that on average a person speaks 400 to 500 words. You know, like it's not a lot on a daily basis. Like if Spanish has like 4,000 words and we only speak like 10% of that, you know what I mean? So then if you only speak one language, you're only speaking 400 to 500 words, which means that's all you have to understand yourself, to communicate, to express yourself, right? And we need words to understand ourselves. How else are we going to do it? You know, everything we do, everything that we see and that we understand as real, we have a name for it. Even if the name is very like, woo, you know, there's still a name for it. There's still a way in which we refer to it, right? Because things exist in community and in communication, you know? So, I mean, I feel like when you learn a language, you discover like a second language, a third language, you like reveal new layers of yourself and new ways to understand yourself. And you also start to question like old narratives, you know, that you may not even realize that come from your mother tongue. We always talk about in Spanish and in many other romantic languages, we split the notion of being into two, right? So the verb to be in English is split into ser and estar in Spanish. Ser being used for more permanent states of being, states that are less likely to change quickly, basically. And then estar, which is used for more temporary states of being. So in English, you say, I am Valentina and I am angry. And that's the same thing. Something that is so core to your identity, your name, the way that people refer to you every day of your life, and an emotion. Same thing. Whereas in Spanish, yo soy Valentina y estoy enojada. Yeah, in this moment, I am angry, but I am not anger. You know what I mean? All emotions in Spanish are temporary. Estoy cansado, estoy feliz, estoy triste, you know?
That's so good. It takes a lot of reframing for people because the work that I do is in the somatic space. So many people are talking about their emotions, and it's so common to say, I am that. It takes so much reprogramming to say, I feel angry right now. It takes a lot more process to do that because it's not naturally occurring in the language.
Yeah, which makes sense as to why people also really struggle understanding and separating ser from estar.
Yes.
Like you'll
it's
meet
hard.
people who have been speaking Spanish as their second language for decades, and they'll be like, yeah, I'm pretty fluent, but I still mix up ser and estar. Yeah, because it's core. It's like a core concept. And yes, you can look at it as it's grammatically challenging, but I think it's way deeper than that, you know? It's just a subconscious process.
You said it's a romantic language.
Yes.
You've taught me some words, and I'm curious, any particular words, maybe feelings or other things that don't exist in English that are beautiful in Spanish?
Oh my God. I'm going to have to ask you if they exist in English, I guess.
Great,
Do
let's play.
you have a word? It's one of my favorite words. Do you have a word in English for like a flower or a plant that can't die?
Specifically for a flower or a plant?
That can't die. Which is a
Fact
hypothetical,
check
right?
with the team. I don't know that word.
I definitely, if it exists, it wouldn't be a literal translation because the verb itself doesn't exist in English, which is marchitarse.
Marchitarse.
Is when a flower is not dead yet, it's in the process of dying. Like the petals start to like get wrinkly or maybe yellowy, and then they fall.
There's decay, but that's a different...
Yeah, Not quite.
Not quite decay.
But then the word that I don't think exists in English is the word inmarcesible, which is something that can't die, like a plant that can't die, a flower that can't die.
But immortal.
Immortal.
But that's...
But for the flower.
This is for the flower in particular. It's not, doesn't apply to humans, this word.
No. I mean,
'Cause
I've
immortal
definitely
applies
used
to
it.
humans.
Definitely used it in songs as a poetic resource, but no.
Wow.
Yeah. Inmarcesible. But then there are very famous ones that don't exist in English, like sobremesa. Sobremesa. You know, sobre means above or over.
Like
yeah?
sombrero. That's where it gets, because it's above the head.
Well, sombrero, and
want
this
it
is
to be right.
sobre.
Ah.
We can fact check that.
Okay. Let's see. It seems like it would be right.
Could be.
Maybe not.
And then mesa, table, right?
Yeah.
So la sobremesa is the time spent around the table after a meal.
Ooh.
Chatting, connecting, you know, and sobremesas can go freaking long in Latin America.
So it's an experience
Oh, yeah.
after eating.
Like, we would finish lunch at my grandparents' house on a Sunday at like 1 maybe, and we would stay at the table until like 4, just chatting. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Sobremesa.
I like that. It's the reason why it's not in English, because as soon as you're done eating, next thing, go. Yeah.
But that's what I mean by how learning a new language can help us reframe our entire perception of the world and how we do things, you know, spending time, right? This is something that I find fascinating. The verb to spend in English can be used for money or for time. So you can spend $20 on an ice latte, which you can't. In this town, you can.
No, sorry, you can't.
Or you can spend time with your family and friends as if it's the same kind of resource, you know? Whereas in Spanish, we have a verb for to spend money. Es gastar. ¿Sí? Gasté $20 en un ice latte. And then you have the verb pasar, to pass, which is what we do with time. Pasé tiempo con mi familia y con mis amigos. Right? It's not a resource that we can just like, you know, here you go. It's something that we have to pass through. And often we don't get to choose, you know, how much of it we pass, right? It's not so tangible, like, oh yeah, here you go.
Yeah, such a different experience that comes through in that. Do you notice that there's 2 different versions of Val? There's like the English version and the Spanish version as you experience the world. I often think about this when you're speaking. It's muy rápido. See, it's like very quick because obviously practice. But for me, it comes in, I translate it, and then hopefully it comes out. But it seems like you have a process that maybe you start thinking in English when you're talking in English. But does your experience change with these languages when you're using them?
It's a good question. I think that thinking about that means kind of like switching from one to the next. And the way that I see it, when you learn a new language, you add that on. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, I had this to work with, and now I have this to work with. So in my life, I'm pulling from both, you know? And I feel like when I have conversations, it happens all the time that I won't find I'll be talking in Spanish with a friend and I just can't find the concept in Spanish, you know, because whatever that concept is to me, it integrated in English. And so I need to go to English and vice versa. Happens all the time.
Yeah, the Spanglish that I hear here, even with my partner who's from Costa Rica, and she's like constantly just switching back and forth, but it's automatic because she has access to both.
Yeah.
It just gives you so much more a repertoire.
It's amazing.
And your surface lexicon expands.
Yeah.
Which I think the surface lexicon is so important. Like you're saying, those few hundred words we use, what's available to us to describe a moment, an experience, a situation.
And the words that we unconsciously choose to use.
See.
You know? And the way that our life can change if we change those words. That's how it felt like to me. Like before moving to Costa Rica, I felt like mentally I was in a very challenging place, and I had a lot of very limiting beliefs. And then moving to Costa Rica and meeting people that were leading completely different lives to the one that I was leaving, you know? And the language that they used and the way I started incorporating subconsciously some of those words, like manifestation. Manifestation meant absolutely nothing to me before I started hanging out with the crew. You know what I mean? And the moment manifestation made it into my lexicon, I started manifesting shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know. It's like the words that we choose to use subconsciously every day in our lives have a lot of impact. I mean, that's what manifestation is all about, right? But if you don't have the word, like manifestación in Argentina, for reference, means like a march or some sort of protest. So, como una manifestación, like las personas están manifestando. It's like, okay, we can't go into the city today because this highway is closed because there's una manifestación, you know? So clearly,
Very
manifestation
different.
changed when I moved to Costa Rica, like the meaning of the word.
Wow. Yeah, new possibilities.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the last pillar, fun?
Yeah.
Very curious with
Very important.
learning, obviously, a language, with any new skill as well, because to speak about surfing, I see you surf, I see you practice, I see you go to hang 10 and fail. And I've seen you also do it.
Every single time I have not done it successfully. No.
Okay. I was going to say I saw it. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I saw 5.
No.
Hanging 10 is when all toes go to the front.
Not the
And
working on it.
working on it. Having fun, though, because I've seen you
Always.
fail hard and then paddle back out just smiling. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Like to fail, be bad at it, suck, like we said.
Yeah.
And it is an uncomfortable edge, I assume. But then you're also having fun.
Yes.
So you're having fun in the discomfort.
100%.
Let's go into that.
I mean, yeah, fun was the last pillar to add, and it kind of just happened like the moment I thought, oh, consistency, because it doesn't happen overnight. Like it takes a long time. Fun. If you want to do anything for a long time, it has to be fun. You have to enjoy it. You know, I like when my students come to class and they're kind of nervous and they're like, oh, you know, and then as we get into it, they start to relax and unwind and they start talking about their days and making jokes, you know, and it's like, that's where the learning actually happens. You gotta feel safe and you gotta feel contained in order to learn.
Psychologically, can you talk about this a little bit? Why is play and fun important with learning a skill?
Well, think about learning your mother language, you know? It's like, as kids, we look at the most important people in our lives, whoever that is, our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, and they're playing with us, and they're making faces, and we have our little books, and we have our little toys, and they're like, oh, el perro, the dog, I say wow wow, you know, or woof woof, whatever it is.
Wow wow is so
wow wow, woof woof. You know, and we integrate it because we're making that connection, that neurological pathway has been built of like, oh, this is good. This brings me joy, you know? Or I learn from this, you know? And that's why it's that edge. You know, it's like when kids go and stick their fingers in the power thingy, you know, and it hurts and they're like, oh, I shouldn't do that again. You know, it's the same for us. We need to be in those uncomfortable situations and feel a little bit embarrassed. And honestly, just make peace with being a little bit embarrassed, you know? It's like it's an underexplored emotion. I truly believe it. There's so much good that comes from feeling a little bit embarrassed and testing the limits of what's possible. And just, yeah, showing people that you're trying. You know, Spanish-speaking people, they're not expecting you to have a perfect accent or to nail your thoughts like to the T. They just feel so grateful, and I say this from my own experience, so grateful and so seen and so included when they see you trying to communicate with them in their own language. trying to get to know them for who they truly are and not for the version of themselves that they had to create in order to be able to communicate with you. Does that make sense?
It does. And I dance with that so often between trying to play with it, because I know, and research shows, that in play, we learn something 200% quicker.
Yeah.
Up to 200% quicker. We can learn through playing with the process. And then I get hard on myself while I go and interact at a cafe, or I see a friend that I know their native tongue is in Spanish, and I'm like, "Whoa," and then it gets tight and the pressure comes up. Like, okay, I'm more comfortable in English and I can, speak much better in that space. So yeah, it is a dance. And I like that you brought up when we were kids, because how rapidly we can learn. Do you bring that in with a lot of your students? Like, how do you bring play and fun into the process? I know you do it with me, but I'm your special student. I know that.
Yes. No one compares to you.
No, of course.
I feel like for me, with my students, it's always been, and maybe this is like a little bit of the psychology background with my family, but it's always been above anything else about safety first and them feeling held in the space that we share. I always tell people, like, quote unquote, my job would be so much easier if I just gave you 10 textbook exercises to work on while I sit there and look at my phone and drink my coffee. But I don't want to do that, Vocabulary is very difficult to teach because we only have so much time. And what am I going to do? Sit here and be like, the kitchen, la cocina, el tenedor, el cuchillo, like, no. So vocab is about what's relevant to you, to your life, right? So let's talk about you. Let's talk about your day. If we're working on the future tense, let's talk about your plans for the next year, for the rainy season, for next week.
Which is what we did yesterday in our class.
Yes,
exactly. You actually do this.
True.
Yeah.
The workaround for the future tense. And then if we're learning about the past, let's talk about high school. Let's talk about college. Let's talk about your childhood. But for a lot of people, this is a lot of trust that they have to build with me, who am a stranger to them most of the time, so first and foremost, we got to create that space, that rapport, that, that trust. And it goes both ways. And it also requires me to open up sometimes in class too. It's like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, tell me everything about your life. And then be like, I'm not going to tell you anything about mine, Goes both ways. Yeah. And that's how I end up making really good friends with all of my students and loving my job even more, So I see no downsides.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And I've talked about this before, but it's true that information and emotion together equals long-term memory. So you're doing that beautifully. And I remember most of our classes, it evokes an experience. I'm not just thinking through things analytically.
Yeah.
I'm brought into it. I'm a very somatic person, but you use that and you're like, oh, let's then talk about that space that you're interested in. Yeah. So then it evokes excitement and different things in me. So hopefully it goes in the category of long-term memory, but it's so beautiful that you utilize that process.
Yeah, like when we were talking about like certain emotions and where they show up in the body, great way to like learn vocab around those two things in sentence structuring, yeah.
Can we talk about skill transferring and what you think about that or feel about that? Because you learned English.
Yes.
I heard a bit about your process with that. Don't know how you have an American accent. That's wild. The fact that you've never been to the US, it's so impressive. That's a whole other thing. Surfing and being a musician. I'm sure there's many other things you're great at, but those three I know from my experience, very skilled at. And so I wonder if somebody is learning something, whether it's a language or anything, do you see skill transfers
100%.
Across this?
100%.
And maybe you can speak to that.
Well, the most important thing that I learned about learning anything is that when you learn a new skill, and it could be as small as learning a new word in Spanish or a new structure, there's a new synapses, right? There's a new neural pathway that was created. And that is basically a bridge. And then you can walk that bridge in multiple skills. So the important thing is just creating more and more bridges. You know what I mean? We only develop neurons, if I'm not mistaken, until we're 25. So then we only have as many as we got by that age, you know? And the process that we can do, and this is brain health, is creating more and more and more and more of those bridges. And we do that by learning new skills. And those bridges help us in multiple realms, you know? That's why I always say that if you don't have any reason whatsoever to learn another language, like no reason whatsoever, you still have one reason. And it's the same reason why you go to the gym, even if you don't like it. Or why you go for a morning jog, even if you don't like it. And it's because you got to train the muscle. And learning a language is like freaking, I don't know, man, CrossFit for the brain, you know? Or mat Pilates, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of studies that have come out recently about how learning a new language reduces the risk of developing Alzheimer's or early dementia, you know? And it's because of those new bridges that we are creating.
Is it ever too late to start learning? What's the oldest client you've had?
That I've had or that I have currently?
Either.
My oldest student right now, Tony, is 73. And I think my oldest that I had altogether was Saeed, and he was early 80s.
It's never too late.
And Tony has gotten fluent in 4 years.
4 years. 4 años.
4 años, fluido. Sí. And he still doesn't think it's enough. And that's another thing you gotta face. You know, you're on this boat.
Going.
And you just gotta keep going, man.
Yeah.
It's like surfing. Do you ever feel like, oh, I'm good enough of a surfer?
Yeah.
I'm sure even Kelly is like, hey, could have landed that backside 360 air way better, dude.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What would be your message for anybody coming to, it could be Central America, Latin America, as somebody that's an English speaker? What would be your message to them?
Try.
Yes.
Just give it a shot, you know? And you're going to see the benefits in every angle. And it doesn't have, you may start, I see a lot of people start, we've talked about this. I see a lot of people start learning Spanish from a place of guilt. You know? I feel guilty that I live in Central America, Spanish-speaking country, and I don't speak the language, that I've been here for 13 years and I don't speak it. So I'm just going to go do class to ease consciousness. If that's why you start, perfect. Let that be why you're starting. But I assure you, that's not going to be why you stay in it.
Why do you stay in it?
Because you get to know yourself better. You get to know your community better. You get to feel like you're a part of something that's really beautiful and that's so much bigger than you. And you understand the real reason why you moved here in the first place. You know? It's like, why did we move to Costa Rica? You know? I lived in Argentina, had a beautiful family, had my apartment, had my career, had my thing. You know, why did I move to Costa Rica? I didn't know. You know, I'm still trying to figure out. But clearly, I was seeking something, and somewhere in me, I don't know, I knew that I was going to find it here. And I feel like Americans, English speakers, have that, feel that pull too, and have that calling too. But the language barrier prevents us from truly accessing that. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean that you have to become fluent. And it doesn't mean that you have to speak Spanish now, but just by trying and just by getting yourself into that space, you start opening doors, you know, and you get yourself closer and closer to the real reason why you're here. And I feel like there are consequences to not doing it, and to people collectively in large groups not doing it. Because I see so many people come for a vacation and they get here and they're like, oh my God, nature, so nice. Oh my God, not a 9 to 5, so nice. Oh my God, we sit at the table after we eat, so nice. And they're like, oh, I think I'm gonna move here. And then they move here and they bring the freaking Hamptons with them, you know? And they build a house, a community of life that is essentially the same thing that they had there, you know? And I think that language is a great tool that we have to prevent that, you know?
Yeah. As somebody who is building community here that is not from here, is there anything you feel like myself or people in the community of what I'm building, do you feel like there's anything that you feel like we're missing or could lean into more?
Oof.
Yeah, call me out.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like just time spent with the people that are welcoming you into this place, you know? Time spent with the kids playing ball in the street, time spent at the library, time spent at the schools, time spent at the local supermarkets, you know what I mean? Time spent in town, you know? I feel like, and I say this, I don't say this only for English-speaking people. I'm Argentinian. And Argentinians have a reputation of only hanging out with other Argentinians. And you go to the beach and you see a group of 15 people, the Argies. You know, they have their mate, they're doing their thing.
That's true. Yeah.
And it can feel very tight sometimes. And I have a bunch of Argentinian friends and I love them, but I also make sure that that's not my only group. And I have Tico friends, and I have an American friends, and I have European friends, and I have, you know what I mean? And I keep it diverse because that was the experience that I was seeking out. You know, I want to connect with people beyond their nationality and where they were born. And I think that it's totally normal to want to stick with what's comfortable and what's familiar. There's nothing wrong about that. I think a lot of people deal with a lot of shame and feel like, oh, am I a bad person because there's nothing wrong with sticking to what's familiar and what's comfortable. But I feel like also I feel obligated to call you out on that, you know, and be like, hey, you're missing out. You're missing out.
Yeah. One of the reasons I wanted you on today is because you're such a bridge person, which you just alluded to. You really are. Like, you bridge so many different things, and I like to think of myself as that. And yet there's a lot that I can improve on. Just hearing you name those things, I'm like, yeah, I could definitely do that a lot more. How do you feel like you cultivate this piece of being a bridge person, of really going out of your way, out of the comfort spaces? Why do you feel like you desire that and cultivate that? Because especially in a town like this, I think we could use more bridge people on all sides. You know, everybody. I think the more we can bridge here and around the world, we're going to be in a better place. So how does one start to cultivate that bridge personality?
Oof. I feel like for me, it kind of comes pretty naturally because I love to talk. And because I'm a very
helpful.
social person.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes when we're scared to talk to someone, that has nothing to do with them and everything to do with us. You know? It's like the other day, Tráfico was around. I don't know if we are going to be able to keep this here, but The other day, Trafico was around and they were taking bikes. So many bikes. And I was so sad. I was with my friend Lou and we were both just like crying. It's so sad because all good with Trafico. They got to do what they got to do. But we were in the road of my house, which is the Del Mar road. There's a lot of construction around and most of the construction workers are people from Nicaragua, you know, and most of their bikes aren't legal. That's just what it is. It's very difficult to have a legal bike here and very expensive. So they just have illegal bikes. Okay, sue them. And this old man who had just finished working a 12-hour shift under the sun in hot Costa Rica all day for pennies, probably, was just getting out of work. And in this dirt road, you know, it's not like we were on the main road, on the dirt road. Trafico drove by and they stopped and they took his bike. And me and Lou were just headed back towards Esperanza, so we offered him a ride. And he was gonna walk from L section to Esperanza after a 12-hour shift in construction. And we drove him. And I was like, interesting. I think in any other context, I mean, as a girl, sometimes I drive by constructions and I feel a little uncomfortable, right? And I think that's a very common experience. So I think in that context, I would feel a little bit awkward about talking to these Nicaraguan men, you know? But in the car and feeling so much empathy for what he had just experienced, we just got to talking. And it was such an amazing conversation. And I was laughing so hard. And then at one point we asked him, like, oh, you guys, at that point we didn't know they were Nicaraguan. We could assume, but we didn't know. So we asked them, like, are you from here? And it was two guys, they looked at each other before replying and they hesitated, you know, because they could anticipate some sort of, you know, preconceived notion. And then they said, oh, we were from Nicaragua. And me and Lou were like, oh my God, we love Nicaragua. We went surfing there. Popoyo is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And they were so happy. And I was like, man, I don't put myself in situations like this often enough where I get to just talk to people. And I feel like for a lot of Americans, sometimes talking to ticos can feel like that. You know, you feel like, oh, what am I going to have in common with this person? What are they going to think of me? Like, you know what I mean? And it's so not about them. It's about us. So I feel like, yeah, getting to know yourself helps with that, because the more confident you are in yourself, the more secure you are in yourself, the easier it is to connect with other people, because you're not worried about what they're going to think of you, because you already know who you are. So you can just focus on getting to know them.
Yes. All right. Final segment. Val's hot takes.
Jesus Christ.
Let's
Can we sing this bit, please?
Of course you can. Okay. I won't. But
hot takes.
I would love to know some
boy.
of your hot takes around language, around Nosara, anything else. Got hot. Calor takes.
Está como un poquito caliente aquí, ¿no? My hot takes around... You know what my hot takes are. You know what my hot take is for today.
Let's hear it.
Let's stop using expat as a term to refer to people who moved from the States or Argentina or wherever to live in Central American countries. We are immigrants. That's okay. It's not a bad word. There's nothing attached to the word immigrant. Now, the northern hemisphere in this continent has adopted a very negative view of what being an immigrant is. And like I told you, I think migration is our right. As a species, all animals migrate. And what are borders? It's a made-up concept that served us maybe for a while when traveling was something very difficult, right? And we were kind of like assigned a place, but that's gone. That's long gone. We need to move past it, you know? It's your right to chase the life that you want, whatever that is. And we are immigrants as well in this country, you know, so expat.
Okay. You heard it here. That's the hot
We're
take.
trying
I
to
like it.
embellish something
Yeah.
that doesn't need embellishment, you know?
Beautifully said. Yes. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure we touch on?
Let me check my notes.
Yeah.
Check. Did we? Actually, I think we touched everything.
Touched it all.
Wait, we've touched it all. Yes.
Then you know the final question
Oh boy. Okay.
on the podcast. Val,
Oh no.
in this moment, without weight or pressure to have a right answer,
Diosito.
what does it mean for you to be whole?
And we go on commercial break.
We'll be right back.
Wow. I'm not gonna lie, Ryan. I have been pondering on this question, knowing that it was coming. And I think it's very difficult to narrow down the answer to just one thing. I mean, the nature of the question is very expensive, and I am also 24 years old. So I don't know what a whole human is yet.
Okay.
But I think that for me, a huge part of feeling whole in my life has to do with the balance of giving and receiving. And I don't think that is a permanent state. I definitely think it's a temporary state, and that the balance can tip, you know, either way. But the moments where I feel the most whole and the most at peace is when I feel like I've given and I've accepted, because I struggle a lot sometimes with both, you know? And I think we all do. And I think it's very pretty to say, oh my God, it's very difficult for me to receive. I'm so good at giving. I'm like, if it's difficult for you to receive, it's probably difficult for you to give at times as well, you know? And that's something that I've experienced. But when I feel like, yeah, like I was able to show up for my community, for my family, for my friends, and I've also been vulnerable and open enough to accept and receive what they wanted to give me, I feel the best, and I feel very whole.
Increíble.
Fantástico.
Gracias, Val. Thank you
Gracias a
so much
ti.
for your presence today, for your very first podcast. It was so beautiful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being my teacher. Thank you for being somebody who is so dear to me. I really appreciate you.
Gracias a ti. Y yo te aprecio muchísimo más.